bury my son in peace. Y'all want to put the man in the wig.
The Tesla camera is still rolling. November 14th, 2025. Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. Watch closely. Shanoyd Whyte gets out of the driver's seat. The passenger door opens. Maurice Harrison, GIRLALALA, tries to escape, but he grabs her by the hair. He forces her back inside the car. She's trapped. He paces with his phone. And then multiple gunshots shatter the night. But here's what's going to make your blood run cold. This wasn't his first time. 3 years earlier, November 2022, he was arrested for domestic violence against a different victim. The system let him walk. And now Maurice is dead. But wait, there's more to this story. New evidence has emerged. Police interviews reveal chilling details. And Maurice's own father just sparked a controversy that has the entire internet divided. The question isn't just who killed GIRLALALA anymore. It's how many people failed her before she ever got in that car. If you're new to One Crime at a Time, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and click the bell icon because we're about to go deep into updates that change everything you thought you knew about this case. Trust me, you need to hear this. When we covered GIRLALALA'S case initially, we knew the basics. 21-year-old Maurice Harrison, a beloved TikTok influencer and hairstylist with over 263,000 followers, was shot and killed by her boyfriend Shanoyd Whyte Jr. on November 14th. We knew she'd posted about abuse. We knew there was Tesla camera footage. We knew her family was devastated. But what we didn't know, what has come out in the days and weeks since, paints an even darker picture. A picture of a system that failed. A picture of warning signs that were ignored not just by social media, but by law enforcement. A picture of a man who should never have been free to hurt anyone ever again. Let me take you back to November 2022, 3 years before Maurice's death. Shanoyd Whyte Jr., who once played football at Bethune-Cookman University, was arrested for domestic violence. The arrest report is clear. He physically and maliciously battered the victim multiple times. Multiple times. This wasn't a one-time incident. This wasn't a moment of lost control. This was a pattern. But here's where the system failed the first time. That victim, and investigators have confirmed it was not Maurice, that victim declined to go further with the case. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was pressured. Maybe she thought he'd change. We don't know. What we do know is that Shanoyd walked away from that arrest without real consequences. No conviction. No restraining order that we know of. Nothing to stop him from doing it again. And he did do it again. Maurice started dating Shanoyd sometime around 2022 or early 2023. They'd been together for about 3 years by the time November 14th, 2025 rolled around. And during those 3 years, Maurice documented the abuse. She showed her followers the bruises. She talked about him ripping off her wigs during fights. She described him biting her. Biting. She told stories about physical altercations that left her hurt and scared. But she stayed. Or maybe she tried to leave and couldn't. Or maybe she was planning her escape and ran out of time. We'll never know for sure. What we do know is what happened on that Friday night in November. And the new details that have emerged are absolutely chilling. Picture this. November 14th, 2025. Evening. Lauderdale Lakes. Maurice is in the passenger seat of Shanoyd's Chevrolet Malibu. They're parked in the driveway of a home on Northwest 37th Street. And they're arguing. According to what Shanoyd later told police, they argued often. He said they'd been in a relationship for the past 3 years, and arguing was normal for them. But this argument was different. This argument was going to be their last. Shanoyd told deputies that the argument started because Maurice pulled his hair. His hair. Think about that for a second. He's about to justify what comes next by saying she pulled his hair. But let's talk about what actually happened, what that Tesla camera captured, because it tells a very different story than the one Shanoyd wanted police to believe. The Tesla parked nearby has a door camera. These cameras are motion-activated, and they record what's happening around the vehicle for security purposes. And on this night, that camera became a silent witness to murder. The footage shows Shanoyd getting out of the driver's side of his Chevrolet Malibu. Then the passenger door opens. Maurice is trying to get out. She's trying to escape. And this is the moment that should haunt everyone who watches this case unfold. Shanoyd walks around the car. He grabs Maurice by the hair. The same hair she built her career around. The same wig she installed with such artistry and pride. He grabs her by the hair, and he forces her back inside the car. Let that image sit with you for a moment. A woman trying to flee. A man physically preventing her escape. This isn't an argument that got out of hand. This is captivity. This is control. This is a man who knows exactly what he's doing. The Tesla camera keeps recording. Shanoyd is pacing now. He's got his cell phone in his hand. Maurice is back in the passenger seat, trapped. And then, according to what Shanoyd later told police, he pulled his firearm. He actually admitted that part. He told deputies, "I then pulled my firearm." But when they asked him what happened next, he declined to provide any further details. He said he didn't want to incriminate himself. Too late for that, Shanoyd. Way too late. Multiple gunshots ring out. Not one. Not two. Multiple. Maurice is shot multiple times while sitting in that passenger seat. The Tesla camera captures the moment. The sound. The violence. The end of a young woman's life. And then Shanoyd does something interesting. He calls 911. He's the one who calls for help. At approximately 7 p.m., deputies receive the call and rush to the scene at Northwest 37th Street. When they arrive, Shanoyd directs them to his Chevrolet Malibu in the driveway. He's still there. He hasn't run. The gun is still at the scene. And Maurice is in the front passenger seat, bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds. Deputies immediately call for medical assistance. Maurice is rushed to Broward Health Medical Center in Fort Lauderdale. But she's been shot too many times. The injuries are too severe. Maurice Harrison, GIRLALALA, is pronounced dead at the hospital. 21 years old. A whole life ahead of her. Gone. Shanoyd Whyte Jr. is arrested at the scene. He's charged with first-degree murder with a firearm. And when detectives interview him, he gives them just enough to try to paint himself as the victim. He says Maurice pulled his hair. He says they argued often. He admits he pulled his gun. And then he stops talking. Because he knows. He knows that Tesla camera saw everything. He knows there's no way to explain away what he did. On Monday, November 17th, Shanoyd appears before a judge for his first hearing. The judge denies bond. Shanoyd sits in jail, where he belongs, waiting for his case to move forward. As of now, he has not entered a plea. His next court appearance is scheduled, and prosecutors are making their intentions very clear. They're seeking the maximum penalty. If convicted of first-degree murder with a firearm, Shanoyd is looking at life in prison without the possibility of parole. And given the premeditation shown in that Tesla footage, given the fact that he physically prevented her from escaping before shooting her multiple times, some legal experts are saying prosecutors might even pursue the death penalty. That Tesla footage is everything. It shows premeditation. It shows intent. It shows a man who trapped a woman in a car and then shot her multiple times. There's no self-defense claim that can survive that video. There's no accident. There's no heat of the moment. That video shows exactly what it was, murder. But here's where this story takes another devastating turn. Because even in death, Maurice can't find peace. Even in death, she's being denied her identity. And it's coming from the one place it shouldn't, her own father. A few weeks after Maurice's death, her father posted a video from his car. And that video went viral for all the wrong reasons.
And bury my son in peace. Y'all want to put the man in the wig. I ain't letting no preacher stand up. Ain't no ordained, anointed preacher gonna do that. Stand over no man and preach in the wig. Stop it. Y'all doing this for the show.
In it, he expressed anger about the funeral arrangements. He said he was refusing to bury his son in a dress and wig. Let me be clear about what he said, because his exact words matter. He said, "Can't even bury my son in peace. Y'all want to put the man in a wig. I ain't letting no preacher stand over. Ain't no ordained, anointed preacher gon' do that, stand over the man and preach in the wigs. Stop it. Y'all doing this for the show. Y'all ain't worried about my son's soul. The man. His son. Not his daughter. Not Maurice as she lived. Not GIRLALALA as the world knew her. He's dead naming his own child at her funeral. He's refusing to honor the identity she lived openly and proudly. The identity she built a career around. The identity she shared with hundreds of thousands of people who loved and supported her. But it gets more complicated, because Maurice's father offered what he thought was a compromise. He said fans and friends could view GIRLALALA in a wig on Friday, December 5th. One day for the world. One day for the followers. One day where Maurice could be herself. But then Saturday, December 6th, the actual funeral service, that would be for family. And at that service, Maurice would be presented how God gave him, as her father put it. As Maurice, not GIRLALALA. In masculine clothing, presumably without the wigs that were such a huge part of her identity and artistry. He said in that video, "Please, I ask y'all to have Friday. I'ma give the world GIRLALA, whatever y'all want." GIRLALALA, I don't know him as that. I ain't taking that from his followers, his crowd, none of that. I'ma give the world GIRLALA. Like it's a gift. Like it's something he's generously offering rather than who his daughter actually was. The backlash was immediate and it was fierce. LGBTQ+ advocates spoke out, saying that respecting a person's identity in death is a fundamental way of showing love and honoring who they truly were. Social media erupted. People who'd followed Maurice for years, who'd watched her grow into herself, who'd celebrated her confidence and authenticity, they were furious. They were heartbroken. Because here's a young woman who was murdered by her boyfriend, who documented abuse, who tried to survive, who built a life and a career being unapologetically herself. And now, even in death, she can't be herself. Even in death, she's being misgendered and rejected by her own father. Some people defended the father, saying he has a right to his religious beliefs, that he's grieving and we should give him grace. And yes, he's grieving. He lost a child. That's unimaginable pain. But here's the thing, Maurice lived as a woman. Maurice presented as a woman. Maurice built her entire online presence around being a woman, around being GIRLALALA. To strip that away at her funeral isn't grief. It's denial. It's one final rejection of who she was. This controversy has sparked a much larger conversation about how transgender people are treated, not just in life but in death. About how families who rejected their trans children while they were alive suddenly want to control their memory after they're gone. About how dead naming and misgendering don't stop being harmful just because someone has died. If anything, it's more harmful because the person isn't here to speak for themselves anymore. Maurice's friends and chosen family are devastated. The community that embraced her when her biological family struggled to is heartbroken. And the world is watching to see how this funeral unfolds. Will Maurice's father actually go through with his plan? Will there be protests? Will Maurice's friends refuse to attend a service that doesn't honor who she was? We don't know yet. But what we do know is that Maurice deserved better. She deserved better from her boyfriend who killed her. She deserved better from a legal system that let her killer walk free after his first domestic violence arrest. And she deserves better from her own father in death. So let me ask you some questions. Questions that I hope will make you think. Questions that don't have easy answers, but that we need to grapple with anyway. Why does our justice system allow someone arrested for domestic violence to walk free with no real consequences when we statistically know, that domestic violence almost always escalates? Why do we wait until someone is dead before we take abuse seriously? That 2022 arrest should have been a red flag. That victim who didn't press charges, she got away. But the next victim, Maurice, she didn't. What could have been different if Shanoyd had faced real consequences the first time? And here's the question that keeps me up at night. What was going through Maurice's mind when she tried to get out of that car and Shanoyd grabbed her hair and forced her back in? Did she know in that moment that she was going to die? Did she think about all the videos she'd posted about the abuse? Did she think about how she'd warned people this could happen? Or was she still hoping, even then, that he'd let her go? Why do we live in a world where a young woman can document her abuse, show the bruises, tell the stories, and still end up dead because no one intervened in time? What does that say about us? What does that say about how we value certain lives, especially transgender lives? And this question might be the hardest one. How do you grieve someone you claim to love while simultaneously refusing to honor who they were? Maurice's father is in pain. I genuinely believe that. But is his pain more important than Maurice's identity? Is his grief more valid than the truth of who his daughter was? When we prioritize a parent's comfort over a deceased person's lived identity, what message are we sending to every other transgender person watching this unfold? Think about the young trans people who followed GIRLALALA, who saw her living authentically, who saw her building a career and a life. They're watching this funeral controversy and they're learning that even if they live their truth, even if they're open and proud, their families might still reject them in death. They might still be dead named at their own funerals. What does that do to a person's sense of safety and belonging? If this case has affected you, if these updates have made you angry or sad or confused or all of the above, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Not just because it helps the algorithm, but because it tells me these stories matter to you. Subscribe to One Crime at a Time if you haven't already, because we're not done covering this case. As the trial progresses, as more information comes out, we'll be here breaking it down for you. Click that bell icon so you don't miss a single update. And please share this video. Share it with someone who needs to understand why domestic violence is so dangerous. Share it with someone who needs to understand why respecting transgender identities matters. Share it with someone who works in law enforcement or the legal system and might have the power to change how we handle domestic violence cases before they turn deadly. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Should Maurice's father honor her identity at the funeral? What do you think should happen to Shanoyd if he's convicted? How do we fix a system that let him walk free after his first domestic violence arrest? I want to hear from you. I want to know how this case is making you think and feel. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. They're available 24/7. For LGBTQ+ individuals specifically, the Trevor Project offers crisis support at 1-866-488-7386. Your life matters. Your identity matters. And there are people who will help you escape, who will honor who you are, who will keep you safe. If you found this case as devastating and important as I did, watch this next video where we cover another story about domestic violence, warning signs the system ignored, and a family's fight for justice. Visit this channel for more similar cases like this, cases that matter, cases that force us to confront uncomfortable truths about how we treat the most vulnerable people in our society. Because at one crime at a time, we don't just tell stories. We demand better. For victims like Maurice. For survivors still fighting. For justice that actually means something.